some of it grants and some of it loans, so pretty good effort in that space. There's lots of other areas that need attention. So I'm happy to support this. I thank Councillor Collins for providing that direction, and hopefully we can get a lot of this work happening in all of our areas, all of which have needs, no question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Councillor Pearson is next.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Truly appreciate, and I just wanted to have the opportunity to thank Councillor Collins as well. It is very difficult to address certainly the needs in all of the wards, and especially Ward 10. And you know, this is just a drop in the bucket. And I truly appreciate Councillor Collins actually moved several years ago that there was a bit of a funding pot, and we were able to take advantage of that. It was about $900,000 per ward, and I've certainly been able to actually, it's on the front burner now to take advantage of that money because I'm being very frugal, and I certainly have many projects that residents in my ward have been very patient and waiting for. So again, I want to thank Councillor Collins. I will definitely be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. I'm going to speak before we go to second-time speakers, Councillor Clark. Just quickly, the folks said this is a great motion.
Sorry, through Mr. Deputy Mayor, you just need to turn the chair over to Mayor.
Oh, to Mayor Eisenberger. Yeah, I'll give the chair over to Mayor Eisenberger. Mr. Mayor? Is he there? Or someone take
Councillor Farr.
Councillor Farr, would you like to take the chair?
No problem.
Thank you, sir. So through you, Mr. Chairman, this is a great motion, and just to look at this for what it's worth, because if our infrastructure deficit is what we're concerned about, this is exactly the remedy we need, because we're not creating new pressures, as I think has been alluded to. This is to deal and chip away at that existing infrastructure deficit. So let me tell you a story that back in the mid-2000s, it was Councillor Collins and Councillor Powers who came together on a very similar situation that was area rating issue, which we all familiar with. Now, I know a lot of my suburban colleagues are saying we don't have that as an option, but keep in mind, you don't have that as an option by design because your colleagues at the time didn't want it to be applied to a tax savings. So Councillor Collins and Powers got together. They said, let's create this area rating. My only contribution to it was we needed to be rigid on where we spent it. And the infrastructure is where was my amendment and where the focus was. Now, the only problem we experienced over the years was people trying to exempt that eligibility. So the key here is to ensure that when we create this, that it's only spent to chip away at the deficit and not create circuses to spend money that we don't have and go on vacations we can't afford when our roof is leaking. That's what this shouldn't be. And that's why we're focused in on infrastructure. And that can mean a park, a playground, a recreation center, a sidewalk, a road. It doesn't mean other things that we've seen in the past. So that's needs to be the focus today, because the merit about this is unquestionable. You look at the City Motor Hotel in my area, we're able to take away the blight, and it was empowering for the community too, because we had that discretion. Take away the blight, $2 million, expropriate it, sell it, get the money back, and redo all these parks and create so many great amenities. This is the most empowering process. We should be looking at ways of expanding this, not limiting it. This is the problem that we have, the infrastructure. If someone doesn't understand that, we have a real serious problem. So I thank Councillor Collins again. I thank Councillor Ferguson for seconding it. And I thank in advance my colleagues for understanding the importance of what's before us. Thank you. And I'll take the chair back. And I believe the next speaker is
Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark for a second time. Councillor Clark, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just had a couple of questions of our staff so that we can clarify some things to Mr. McKinnon or anyone that he would refer the question to. Sidewalks that are needing repairs, I'll use my ward as an example. How does the city assess the sidewalks annually? because they change every year. After the winter, we find many cracks in sidewalks as they've heaved. How does the city go out and assess those sidewalks annually? I know they do, but I'd like to understand the process.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So on an annual basis, our Transportation Operations and Maintenance Division undertakes inspections of all of our sidewalks to determine whether or not the defects in the sidewalks are relative or meet the threshold of a minimum maintenance standard defect, or whether or not I'll call it as an aesthetic situation where you might have a crack in a sidewalk or some kind of spalling of the surface of the sidewalk that doesn't necessarily meet the minimum maintenance standard, but might present some kind of a problem for us for other reasons. So it does occur on an annual basis. We have inspectors out there walking every piece of sidewalk that we have and then chronicling the different defects.
Thank you. And I appreciate that, because from that assessment, a report comes back and indicates which types of sidewalks or which sidewalks in my ward don't need repair now, but may need repair in the future, and others need repair now because they have become trip hazards. And the way the staff deal with those trip hazards is they try to grind the sidewalks down first, or they add a bit of asphalt as a lip to allow people easily traversing that particular trip hazard. When it gets large enough, then we have to replace the sidewalk bay. Is that not how staff makes those determinations, Mr. McKinnon?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's part of it. When determining if a piece of sidewalk requires some kind of intervention, our teams will talk to our engineering services group as well to determine whether or not that section of roadway may be scheduled for an upgrade in the near future. What we don't want to do is go out and spend money this year if we know that there's going to be a larger capital project next year. But in summary, after the inspections tell us where we need to put our effort, then we, one way or the other, we follow that up with the appropriate interventions.
And it's the lack of resources available or money available that prevents our staff from fixing all of the sidewalks that need fixing right away. Is that also not the case?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's the case pretty much for all of our assets. We try to identify which are the assets that are requiring some kind of attention, that carry the greatest amount of risk, and we try to put them first. Again, having to blend that with the different types of assets that might exist in the roadway cross-section, be it roads, sidewalks, water, or sewer. There's a bit of a recipe there to determine which ones we move first.
Thank you. And with regards to roads, how does the Public Works Department, the Roads Division, assess roads on an annual basis? Because again, they do very similarly what they do for sidewalks, but they also do it on the roads. And last time I spoke with someone about that, they had a vehicle that they indicated that would drive over the roads and assess the damage somehow. Could you speak to that, or have someone speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there's two different groups that will be doing that. The Road Transportation Operations and Maintenance will be doing their road patrol to identify whether or not there are potholes in the road or defects such as manhole covers that have failed that would meet the test of the minimum maintenance standards, and then they would react to that one way or the other. In addition to that, our engineering services group on a can't remember the cycle. I want to say it's maybe every 3 years we'll go out and drive the roads with a special instrument that looks at the rideability and other parameters to help guide where we're going to invest in our capital program. So there's other defects that are taken into consideration with that as well, transverse joint cracking, deflections, that type of thing. So it is undertaken by two different groups, but the results from that are blended together to try to identify the best candidates to put forward on an annual basis.
And to be clear, it is staff's recommendations with regards to which roads or sidewalks need replacing that the local councillor or council heed and proceed if the money is available. And in essence, it's not a political decision to say, Councillor Clark wants the road over on such and such street to be repaired, whether or not the road needs repairs or not. We don't deal with it that way. We have to assess it, make sure that there's a need for that repair, and then find the resources and move forward with it. Is that not the way it happens?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say generally that's the way it happens. I don't think it's uncommon for information to come to a councillor specific to an issue that may have persisted for a long period of time. And for whatever reason, through our analysis, it still hasn't floated to the top of our list. So I think there are rare occasions where I'll call it the voice of the resident is only heard through kind of the process of the councillor being involved. Otherwise, there are examples of defects or situations that exist in different wards that just may never make it to our list. So, I think it's both things, councillor.
Thank you. So those are my questions. And I asked those questions because the implication is that this is somehow a political decision. It's not. It's a political decision to find the funds. And then the funds are going to be used to fix the roads and sidewalks that our staff are advising us we need to do. We don't have the resources. And so that's what this is fundamentally about. And I can tell you that during COVID-19, the sidewalks in my ward never saw so much traffic from residents walking. And I have not received so many calls about sidewalk issues than in this past year from people being out in their community and walking. We talk an awful lot about walkable streets. We talk an awful lot about complete streets. This is an attempt to start to whittle away at the infrastructure deficit that we have on sidewalks and streets. Now, if some wards don't have those issues, God bless you. But in Ward 9, we have those issues. And I have not been the least bit backwards about being forwards and advising council of those concerns. And council has been very supportive. So again, I understand the philosophical issues about it being outside of a budget year, but we have made many decisions as a council outside of a budget year with large amounts of money. And if the money is available to repair sidewalks in Ward 9, but we choose not to do it for political purposes, then that's on us. So I support this motion. It needs to be done. The work needs to be done. And I thank Councillor Collins for finding the innovative approach and Councillor Ferguson for seconding it and for our finance staff in helping them put this motion together. We need to get this work done. It would be great if we had more resources. And Councillor Murillo is correct. I don't have area rating in my ward. And I'm not complaining about it. It's just the way it is. I work around that to the best of my ability to find the resources to improve the sidewalks and roads in my ward. And I make no apologies for doing that. That's my job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Can we have Councillor Pauls now?
Yes, thank you. And through the chair, I also want to thank Councillor Collins because as a ward councillor of Ward 7, having almost 100,000 residents, you can imagine the emails I get when somebody calls me or emails me and says, there's a crack on a sidewalk, I need a fix now. Or when somebody calls and says, the parks, they are not painted. There's a lot of glass on the parks. We need help. And you know what? It's nice to say, we'll get it done. We have enough funds from our area rating to get it done. But I also want to say that even just about a couple of months ago, I had a request of a fence that needed to be replaced in city housing, that there was no funds for it. And I was able to help with that and build a fence, brand new fence for that city housing. And so I just want to say thank you to Councillor Collins for putting this motion. I will support it. And thank you for that. Thank you.
We now are done with the speakers. So we have the motion that's before us, and it's moved by Councillor Collins and seconded by Councillor Ferguson. All in favor, and it's an electronic vote.
You're gonna hit me with a thumbs up here. I inadvertently logged out of eScribe, so I'll be back.
Okay, no problem.
Gotcha, Mr. Mayor. Councillors Vanderbeek and Nan, are you able to vote? Thank you, Councillor Vanderbeek. And Councillor Nan, do we still have you? I don't seem to have her there. Okay. That vote carries 12-2.
Moving on to general information and other business, may I please have a mover and a seconder to put item 13.1 on the floor? And that's moved by Clark, seconded by Ferguson. All in favor? Electronic vote.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderbeek. Vote closes, carries 14-0.
Madam Clerk, now we're moving on. Are there any other items of general information or other business?
None.
Seeing no indication. I'm sorry?
Councillor Collins?
Oh, Councillor Collins.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I have a quick question. I should have raised it earlier, but I did get a couple of calls today while the meeting was on about the status of garage sales and COVID. And of course, the beach holds their annual garage sale every July. And so I was hoping to, through you, to ask Paul Johnson about the legalities of garage sales and if he could assist with the inquiries that we're starting to get. And of course, as the weather has now improved to the point I am starting to see just signs on telephone poles and things of that nature advertising the same in all parts of the city. So if I could, through you to Paul Johnson, if he's with us, ask about the legalities provincially with the rules and what advice we have for people who are holding events if they're permitted at this point in time.
Mr. Johnson.
Certainly, through the Deputy Mayor. So garage sales, yard sales can continue. And so people are responsible for monitoring the numbers and ensuring that people keep a relative distance when they're at those events. But private individuals on their property having garage sales is fine. So when it comes to the beach area and that community with the large scale piece, our advice is that individual residents in those neighborhoods, if they wish to have a yard sale, garage sale, can. Just a reminder that it is not permitted on public land. So people wishing to set up on sidewalks and in parking lots and small parkettes or on trails, that's not permitted. And I know in the case of the event in down by the beach that in certain years people have come from other areas looking to set up. So we would discourage that. This is for residents only, and it can happen. It's not considered an event because in these cases, this is not something that's being drawn together by an organizer overall. It's an individual piece that, quite frankly, throughout the pandemic, we've had this go on, and we'll continue to allow that to occur at individuals' residences.
Thank you for clarifying, Paul. Appreciate the information.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Thank you, Paul. Moving on, there are no further speakers. So we're going now, I believe, into private and confidential. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? So
Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that's correct.
may I please have a mover and a seconder to move into closed session respecting items 14.1 to 14.6 pursuant to section 9.1 subsections C, D, E, F, and K of the city's procedural bylaw 21021 and section 2392, subsection C, D, E, F, and K of the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, labor relations or employee negotiations, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. We will require an electronic vote. Please indicate your vote now, and it's moved by Farr, seconded by Johnson. All in favor, electronic vote.
That vote carries 13-0.
Madam Clerk, members of the public, the meeting will continue following the closed session portion of the meeting when you see the members of council rejoin the meeting. Okay, a reminder to all members of committee to please ensure you move into the closed session portion of eScribe. Before we move into closed session, I would ask all members of the public to please now exit the WebEx meeting. As well, any staff that are not directly related to items 14.1 or 14.6 are also asked to please exit the WebEx meeting.